I got to figure out how to put music on this. I say it every week and I haven't figured it out yet. Okay, we are live on Facebook. Let me just share it to YouTube. I mean, let's share it to Facebook. We're live on YouTube is what I meant to say. Okay, I'm going to put it on my page. Okay, we're live now on Facebook and on YouTube. On Facebook, you just have to click on the click on it. It'll take you to YouTube so you can watch what's going on, and you can comment on Facebook. Scotty's watching that, and I'm watching the YouTube for comments. Of course, I'm not right now because I just happened to close that window, so I got to go open it up again. Okay, here we are. We're live, and we're live. It is 10 p.m. East Coast time, 10:03. This is Pesach Sherbo coming to you live from Sfat, Israel, and it is the here is February 1st. It's still January 31st where you are for another couple hours. In the room tonight, we have Scotty and Terry, the Tennesseans, as co-hosts, and we got Tony there. How you doing, Tony, from Arizona, No Hide Connection? And yeah, we're here, and we're going to have a discussion. I'm just getting up on the Facebook again here so I can see the YouTube. Okay, there we go. We're on YouTube. Okay, here we go. Listen now, appreciate you all being here. Anybody that's coming along on Facebook or YouTube, or come on in the Zoom meeting room. And we kind of decided here to take a little load off of me. We're going to start once a month on Wednesday evenings, and we'll announce which Wednesday it's going to start, that Terry and Scotty, the Tennesseans, are going to take over the room and do a teaching for you guys like they do their other, like their podcasts and things. So we're going to get that started very quickly. One of the things that that I wanted to talk about came up at a meeting I had today with some people, and they said, you know, they heard two of you singers say something about, you know, you can always, when you do a study or when you give tzedakah, charity, or anything, you can do it in somebody's memory or name. And we're going to do the teaching tonight in the name of Rabbi Dr. Avram Twersky, a great man of Torah. You can read about him on the internet. He was very big with teachings and with addictions, people with addictions. He helped them. He's also a psychologist and great man, one of the greats of Israel. He was buried this evening here in Israel. And we also have two other great Torah scholars that passed in the last 3 days, all of them from COVID, and all of them here in Israel. And we're doing our teachings tonight and our discussions tonight in their name. Now, what does this mean? When we do anything, teaching, study, mitzvah, whatever we do, if we think of the person that we want to dedicate what we're doing to, he'd be your mother, your father, your grandparents, anybody. When you consciously and with purpose. In other words, with intention. Say, this is the reason I'm learning tonight or today, or I'm studying right now, or the reason I'm giving this charity is in this person's name. This gives the person, it raises their soul up in front of God. You are actually lifting up the soul of this person who has passed and saying, God, I'm doing this in this person's merit. They get credit for it. Now, you're doing a mitzvah, you're doing something good, but you're also, and it's hard for me to put into English exactly what we're talking about, but that person's neshama, their godly part of them kind of gets raised up a little bit because you're helping them out. You're doing for them. And so it is a mitzvah to do it in someone's, you get a blessing because you've thought of the person, you've done it, but also if it's your grandparents or your great-grandparents or whoever it is that you want to bring their name in front of God, do it. You see, we each have a connection to God, and he listens to each one of us. And if you mention a loved one's name or anybody else's name, also you can do it for Refuah Shlema, for a total healing. And I want to add names of 3 of the people here in Sfat that are my friends. Yaakov Charsky, who right now is in the hospital. He has COVID, one of the variants, and he had a blood clot in his lung, and they thought he had a stroke, and he was on breathing, and now he's off of it this evening. Thank you, Lord. And Big Mo from Ascent, any of you that know Big Mo, and also Yehuda Sugar. 3 friends of mine, all that pray in the same minyan, are now infected, and to various degrees. So we're asking for a healing for these 3, and we're asking and holding up the name of Rabbi Twersky and the other 2 great men of Israel that have died, to hold them up before God. It's always good, even if you send money somewhere. I know some people, I really appreciate send me money. If you want to put on there, it's to somebody's memory or to somebody's healing or something. Not only does that work and help for you. Hello there, Cole. How you doing? Not only does it work for you, but it's when I get it, I say Psalms in that person's name. Well, I do Psalms every day, and so I have a little list of people that I mentioned before I do my daily Psalm reading, which is a good thing for you to do too, actually. And there's Devora, Scruffy Scrubs. I love that nickname. On YouTube. Good to see you. So we call it Aliyah for the Neshama, for the godly part of that person who's already passed, or we're reinforcing our prayers for their healing. See, and this is something that we can do because we're making the connection between the material and the spiritual. You're making a difference between the spiritual and material things. And, this Torah portion that we're having this week, which is Jethro, or however you want to read it, there's something that's happening here from the time that Israel comes out of Egypt and comes to Mount Sinai. Now, if I'm remembering right, the new blog that Terry has kind of puts a connection together on that. Nod your head, Terry, if I'm remembering it right. and maybe I'm not remembering it right. Maybe it was something else I read. Here's the story of what happened. When God created everything, it says, and it tells us in Psalm, I think 115, that what's in the heavens belongs to God and what's on the earth belongs to man. And there was a definite separation between the two. Man couldn't take something, even a sacrifice that he would do, and raise it up spiritually in holiness. Whatever he did, it was good. It was a mitzvah, but it was for here on earth. It had no connection to heaven. And this happened until Moses received the Ten Commandments. When Moses received the Ten Commandments, when God came down to Mount Sinai, he established the connection between heaven and earth. And he established it with Torah. So there then became a connection between the two things. And this is from, I'm going to read just a little bit and discuss it. And it comes from, let me go down the bottom here. It's called Likutei Sichot. In other words, a synopsis of discussions that the Rebbe or Alter Rebbe had. And this comes from the Rebbe from about 60 years ago. And it's a very interesting revelation when you read about it. It's a turning point in the world's spiritual history. The giving of the Torah is the uniting of the spiritual and physical realms. It's bringing them together. Before the giving of Torah, there was this degree of separation. There's a separation between the spiritual and the physical. And like I said, Psalm 115, the heavens are the heavens of God, and earth he gave to man. And there was no way to bring the two together. Heaven and earth, bringing it together. There has to be a connection. There has to be a way to bring it together. But when the Torah was given and God came down on Mount Sinai, his descent gave the Jewish people, Israel, the potential through observance of mitzvot to elevate material reality heavenward and bring it into contact with the spiritual. For this reason, the mitzvot, which our patriarchs observed before the giving of the Torah, although performed with material objects, didn't have the power to infuse holiness into these objects. At that time, there was no way to connect the two. There was no bonding agent between the spiritual and the physical. So the object of our patriarchs, the performance of what they were doing, was to draw godliness into the spiritual realms, and the body of each one served as what we call a chariot or a vessel to help bring down what had to be done. But they lived in the material world, and the spiritual permeated their existence. But it got expressed in the observance of their material, on their material things, but not for everybody. It just didn't work. The intent of it was not to affect the material world. The physical activities were merely a manifestation of physical advancement. So an example, I guess, would be to put, remember when Jacob put the different chopped wood in front of Laban's sheep, and it turned, ones were spotted, they were just different colors depending on what piece of wood he put in front of it. Well, the identity of the object used for the service wasn't important. and what Israel put in front of the sheep could influence the sheep spiritually, and make them come out in different colors, which is what God wanted to do. He was blessing Yaakov for what he was doing. But the giving of the Torah started something new. When we perform the mitzvot that are given to us, we are infusing what we're doing with holiness into the physical entities with which they were performed. If you give money to do something, there's a spiritual connection on the money that it goes forward to do things. Everything that's used in the temple service, it was inspired, it was infused with a spiritual connection. And we can do that now because of what happened on Mount Sinai. So the entity themselves can become holy. An example, someone told me the other day that they used to go to a class in, I think they were like, I think it was Kabbalah or something, but it was there were no Jewish people there. It was all Noahides or non-Jews studying it. And someone sent them a cup for Nitilat Yadayim. That's the two-handled cup that is used that you wash with before you eat and after you use the restroom and things like that when you get up in the morning. And he hadn't been there in a while, and he walked in, and they had the cup in the middle of the table and had pens and pencils in it. Well, he just went, how can you use this holy thing? And he got upset at everybody. So the next time he came, it wasn't there. And he went over to get something out of one of the supply drawers and saw it was just put away. So he went to the guy that runs the place and said, why did you put it away? He says, because we don't need controversy. Now, what did this guy mean we don't need controversy? The cup for Nitilat Yadayim is not infused with holiness. It's not a something that we use in the temple and the temple service. It's a wash basin. It's something to pour water with. People use it not only for washing their hands in the house, they'll use it for other things. I've seen people use it to water plants. It doesn't become holy. The act that you're doing does, but the kli, the pot itself does not become holy. When you wake up in the morning, a very, very strict people that take things to the strictest, they don't get out of bed before washing their hands in the morning. They roll over, and on the floor beside their bed is a basin with a pitcher, and they go through this ritual, and they don't say a prayer or anything, and then they get out of bed. That pitcher on the floor and that basin on the floor they are not holy utensils. What he's doing is infused with holiness, but not the things that are used to do it. So we have to understand the difference between what we're doing. We have to understand what is truly holy and what gets infused with holiness. So, and this is something we have to understand. A mezuzah is the mezuzah. Inside of it is the hafta. The thing that it's written on, which is called the klaf, is infused with holiness. The mezuzah itself is just a case that protects it from the weather and keeps it good. So there's a division right inside of that. There you go. Well, I don't have you on speaker view. I don't. Sorry, Terry. We're on speaker view right now. But when you go inside to a Jewish home, you see on the doorpost the mezuzah. And they're all decorated, made from all different things. Some people make them out of ceramics, some glass, some plastic, whatever. The case itself is not holy, but what's inside of it is holy. And the case is protecting that holiness from the weather. So you don't have to get a new one every time it rains or something. When you reach up and touch that mezuzah and bring to your mouth, like kiss it, that act is holy. But the mezuzah case itself is not. So the cloth or the printing inside is infused with holiness. So once we got Torah, the potential for the mitzvot after getting Torah is to infuse holiness into material entities. And it stems from a level of godliness that transcends between physical and spiritual. Because the level is transcendent, it's not restricted by neither material or spiritual means. It fuses the two realms together. It's bringing heaven down to earth. You know, most religions are so concerned about getting up to heaven. But when we follow Torah, our concern and our focus is bringing heaven down here. God wants to be with us here. He wants to be together with all of us. So it penetrates all the levels of creation from the top to the bottom. So God, when he gave us Torah, he gave us like his essence. And that's where the holiness comes from, his essence, not his words, but his actual essence. We're all part of him. And he opened up the door for us to make that total connection, spiritual and physical. Now, when we look at the 10 Commandments, there are two types of mitzvot. There's the first 4, which, you know, I am God, you shall have no other gods, don't blaspheme, and do the Shabbat. And there's the ones, do not kill or steal, and so forth. Well, the inclusion of both types of commandments in the 10 Commandments and in the Torah is where the fusion happens, where the coming together of spiritual and physical actually happen. The process itself is reflected in the commandments. You have those that involve spiritual matters. I'm God, you shall not have any other gods, and so forth. Comes down to affect the realm of conduct that relates more directly to the commandments. Do not kill, do not steal. Conversely, with the observance of mitzvot already mandated by human wisdom, the logical ones, we have to recognize the fundamental godliness which lies at the core of those. In other words, these mitzvot should be observed not only because human logic requires it. Remember, a lot of people say, I'm a good guy, I don't kill, I don't steal, I don't lie, I don't do this and do that. But there's no spirituality in those. There's no really godly connection in those. Unless you understand, I am God, your Lord. And it has to be the fundamental reason for you observing the commandments against murder, theft, and so forth. You cannot separate do not kill, do not steal from the commandment, I am the Lord your God. Which, like I said, they're moral imperatives. Everybody knows we're not supposed to do it. But we have to understand that without connecting it to God, we haven't done anything. We haven't done anything to bring heaven down to earth. We're just saying it's ourselves that did it. It's self-love, self-concern. It's not saying I love God, so I'm going to not do these things. I love God, so the love of God is the thing that connects together what's going on. When you read them and you say, okay, the Lord your God says, don't steal, don't murder, don't do this, don't do that. What happens then when you don't do it? If you haven't connected, I am the Lord your God, you're only thinking about yourself. And when you do that, you don't see the nuances, the deeper part of do not murder, do not steal. What is the deeper part of do not murder? You don't humiliate somebody. You don't shame somebody. You don't ruin somebody's name. That's also murder. You don't, if murder, stealing, you can steal many different ways from people. You can steal their time. You can misrepresent something when you sell it, and so forth. So what happens is when we connect the spiritual, which is I am the Lord your God. Once we get that connected, then we're doing the other things and understanding there's a lot deeper meaning to it and a lot more things we have to do. And what is that doing? It's fusing together the spiritual and the physical. It's bringing together the completeness of God in you. Now, when God created us, each one of us were created with some little different thing about us that makes us different than every other human being. Like everybody has their fingerprints, right? And what we get from the spirituality, being together with God, he gives us, someone may have spirituality more in this area or more in the other area or more in the other area, as well as in all areas, but there's emphasis on places. Rabbi Dr. Abraham Twersky, his specialty was helping people with addictions. He brought down from heaven the connection to help people be strong and get through their addictions and to straighten themselves out mentally. And without the spirit of heaven behind it, without that spiritual part, it doesn't work well. I've seen people that are I don't know if Ann Landers, that's an old thing. Maybe people don't know who she is. Dr. Laura is one of them, I guess. She was at one time a frum Jew, and then she went out and came back. I don't know where she is right now today. But a lot of people around the world listen to her advice to women on things. And when I listen to her sometimes, she gives good advice, but it's only on the material level, never a spiritual connection. You can even feel it when she's talking. When you go watch these TED Talks, and people tell you how to get rich and how to network with people and how to do this and how to do that, it's a simple how to make millions. It's a simple material thing. There's no influx of spirituality in it at all. At least I haven't seen any that have it. Some pretend they do, but you can feel it if you know what you're looking for. So it is important for all of us to do what we need to do to connect spiritually also. A person that says, well, I'm a good guy because I don't do this, and I don't do that, and I don't do the other thing that God says not to do. But if it's just a dry material thing, what difference does it make? There has to be the connection to I am the Lord your God. And that connection has a measure of love in it. You're not doing those things because God said, because you love God and you want to be connected to God. You're not doing it because you think it's a good idea. It wasn't your idea in the first place. Oh, gee, I agree. Okay, so that makes me a good guy. Heck, everybody, the countries are coming together and agreeing with each other about a whole bunch of stuff nowadays with all this corona stuff going on, but they don't really mean it. They're just cooperating together because that's what they need to do right now. Once we pass this, it's all back to the other stuff again, I'm sure, just like it happens in every cycle with countries going around the world. Yeah, so this time that we're reading Beshlach, that last week's Torah portion, and Yetro, this week's Torah portion, we're actually seeing, and the week after, we're actually seeing the infusion of spirituality into materialism. This is when it happens. This opens, and then because there were all those millions of Israelites, B'nai Noach, B'nai Israel, the sons of Israel in the house of Jacob, were there to witness it and bear witness to it. It from the Torah, which you guys talked about on your program, that Terry and Scotty, that nothing was written down; it was all oral, and that's true until the point where everything came together. Oral Torah and oral legends and oral things that people give are not drawing anything down. They're just words going from one person to the next person to the next person. The minute God handed us the Torah in writing, it brought it into the material world. It was manifest in the material world. We talk about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, our patriarchs, knowing and doing all of Torah. Well, they did all of Torah that they knew at the time. They didn't have everything written down. So the minute that the Torah was given, boom, the wall broke, the barrier broke, the mechitzah. Mechitzah is a barrier that's put up, and they in a shul, it's the dividing line between men and women. It's the dividing line between you and your. If you have a problem, it's something stopping you. It's a mechitzah, it's called, which is the same letters as Mitzrayim, Egypt. So when that wall was broken, and Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, and it was first thing that happens is war. Somebody's trying to stop this connection from happening. The Sitra Achra, the other side, is trying to stop it. They come out and they're attacked by the Amalekites. And when they're fighting, when Moses has his hands up in the air, like praising God, Joshua and his men are winning. The minute he puts his hands down, it reverses. So I think it was her and I forget, two people were holding his arms. I know one of them was her. I forget who the other one was, but they helped him hold his hands up. So the inflow of the spiritual came down. They hadn't been yet at Mount Sinai to get it. So the spiritual flow and power came down and out to the armies. The connection with the spiritual is a must. Some people say, well, I'm not a spiritual person, or I don't want this, or I don't want that. You don't have a choice here. If you want to connect truly to God, and you have a choice, you can or you can't, whatever you want to do. Free choice. Connect to God or don't connect to God. I am the Lord your God. Period. The God of Israel is your connection. And yes, we're hooking to him, but at the same time, whenever we do anything, and we're remembering we're doing it because of our love for him and because he wants us to do it, we're bringing heaven down to earth. And we're going to read about it a few parshot up, where he says, build for me a tabernacle so I can be there with you. The very first connection. And he lived in a tent. God connected with us in a tent, mobile tent, for 400 and some years till the first temple was built. And the first Holy of Holies was built when Solomon built it. So this is the permanent connection. It's still up there on Mount Moriah. It's still there, even though that goofy gold dome is up there, which some of the Arabs believe it's holy and some of them don't believe it at all, by the way. All their mosques were built to face Mecca, not Jerusalem. We build our temple, our houses of prayer facing Jerusalem. Big difference. There's a big, that's what most of the wars in the Arab worlds are about, by the way, with the holy places. But that's another story for another day. So in synopsis, up until Moses received it written down, there was no spirituality infused in anything material. You could be spiritual and you could do things in a spiritual way, but most people didn't know how to do that then. Only the very, very God-connected ones did it. From that day forth, which is about 3,300 years ago, I think, or 3,350 years ago, and we got it written down, the fusion happened. It's there. It's like a light switch. You want to walk around in the dark, walk around in the dark. It's up to you. But if you flip that switch and allow that power to flow down into you from heaven, allow yourself to make that connection, your life will be a better life. It's that simple. Because you're going to realize God is good. Everything he does is good, even if it looks black and terrible for the moment. What he did ends up for good. And that comes from the very beginning. When he created everything, he said everything was good. He never said one thing was bad. He looked at creation and all was good. Well, heck, it's still good if you look at it right, but he gave you a choice. Look at it any way you want. Amen. Okay, just a little quick thing. Now, I have one question here on YouTube. When a Tanakh gets old and worn, or a Passover Seder, or anything you print out from your computer that has the name of God on it, or any book that is a religious book about God, you do not throw in the trash. Absolutely do not throw in the trash. Everything has to be buried. Here in Sfat, we have about 6 dumpsters around that here we put them in the dumpster. The dumpsters are then everything's collected, taken down to the cemetery and buried. There's a special place to bury them in the cemetery. Now, if it's a book with Avodah Zarah, if it's one of those Bibles that's printed with Old Testament, New Testament, throw it in the trash. You don't have to worry about burying it. But anything that you print out, sometimes people print out the pages from Chabad or Aish or Breslov or whatever to read them. you don't ball those up and throw them in the trash. Every Jewish home has a trash bag in a certain room where when everybody finishes whatever they're doing, they just go and put it in that bag. And when the bag gets filled up so much, like I live about 10 minutes from the cemetery, so I just collect up stuff from me and from neighbors or anybody that wants, and I just run it down there, and they have these dumpsters down there you put it in. And then they bury it. The word of God, and God is, it's not garbage. And you're right, Dvorah, it is buried. So we even do it with our study books when they get old and worn out, can't use them anymore, they're buried. Good night, Tony. It is, that's the way it is. Okay. I think I talked about the two subjects I wanted to talk about tonight. I'm going to open up if anybody else has anything they want to talk about, or I'm going to put it on gallery view here for a sec. And there's Cole and Terry and Scotty. Everybody.
Rabbi, I got to say something you said tonight. It gave me one of those aha moments.
Okay.
You know, in life, when you're going along in life and somebody says something, and you're like, ah, ha, 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 ha. Now I got it.
Yeah.
You just said it. You said it's our perspective, how we look at things, whether it's good or bad. And that's part of free will. That's the ultimate free will, is looking at things good or bad. You stub your toe, it's your free will to look at it as a bad happening or as a good happening. You win $1 million, it's your free will. You can feel horrible about that if you want, or you can feel wonderful about it. Whichever way you want to go, that's the ultimate free will. That's very liberating to know that's, you know, to get that aha moment. You know, that it's really about my free will, about whether or not I want to look at a situation as good or bad. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, I had one of those aha moments a few years ago, or quite a few years ago, that helped me in my trusting in God. You know, things would happen, and I'd say, "Why me?" And then I realized, wait a minute, it's not why me. It's I get to choose how to look at it. So if I say why me, then I'm saying it's bad. So yeah, it's how everybody looks at everything. All of them. So, how you guys doing, Cole, on the Shabbat? You getting?
Yeah, everything's really going well there. We have a steady audience of people that come every week, you know, that participate. And yeah, we have a real good service every Saturday at 8 o'clock a.m. Pacific, 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It puts it right about the time that Shabbat's going out in Israel. So we're fortunate enough to get a live Devar Torah at the end of it all from Rabbi Chaim Goldberg. He comes in and gives us a Devar Torah, gives a little explanation about what something that's going on with the Torah portion of the week, which is just a great blessing. Yeah, we have a really good time doing it, and we'd love to see more people there. So yeah, you can find us. You can find it on the Arizona or the Noachide World Center Arizona chapter page, the Seattle Noachide page. I believe I also posted on Torah for the Nations. But yeah, you can find the links on the Facebook.
Yeah, links are all over. I encourage everybody to go. This is, you know, it's how you look at things. I get questioned all the time. Where's the Noahide community? Where's this? Where I said, hey, here it is. Well, but that's not in the city I live in. Well, great. But here you have a community that's growing. Look at it as a good thing and go join it and be with them. So I think that's a good idea to do that. And Kol HaKavod, you guys. Kol HaKavod is a Hebrew phrase which means more power, more honor to you for doing something like that and sticking with it. That's good. And Scotty and Terry have a new spiritual odyssey up that you might want to recommend to some of the people that haven't quite come around to our way of thinking yet. And they're about to delve into unpacking Genesis. I guess the next program, you're really going to start to unpack it, right? There's quite a bit of introduction to it, and it's a good job. You got everybody primed and ready. And next time you jump right into it, I'm sure. So, yeah, that's really good. Plus, Terry and Scotty are going to start doing once a month on Wednesday evenings our Tour for the Nations broadcast from Noahide World Center. And just remember, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button that's down there in the corner, and subscribe to our channel. And on Wednesday night, we'll be here. It's the same Zoom room link always for right now. It's the same Zoom link always if you have that saved for Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. On Wednesday nights, come join us then. And I purposely have timed this to be a little bit shorter than usual for my own personal reasons. But I really appreciate everybody being here. And if anybody wants anybody mentioned at the beginning of broadcasts, and it's okay to do that, that we're doing it to their honor or in their name, so they can get a refuah shlama, a total healing, or to remember them in front of God, so that it's when you do this, you're lifting up that person's godly spirit, saying, God, this is the person I want you to think about right this minute while we were connected. And it's like giving that person who's no longer with us a blessing. It is. Okay, anybody have anything else they want to talk about or anything, Terry, Scotty, Cole?
Rabbi, have you got time for me to tell a little story?
Certainly do.
Okay. I was in a meeting earlier today, just a little while ago, matter of fact, and it was a little class in the celebration of the New Year of Trees. And today I went by the old home place where I was raised. My grandparents raised me. And I remember when I was about 5 there. Now we're talking 55 years ago. So I remember the yard, everything. And my grandmother was worried about the squirrels not having food during the winter. And she would go up to the mountains and she would hunt hickory nuts. I know everybody knows what a hickory nut tree is, and she would hunt hickory nuts. Well, she decided she was going to plant a hickory nut tree in the front yard, and she did, and she nurtured that tree. I was about 5 when she planted it, and it matured, produced many hickory nuts, and matter of fact, they were so many you could not park a car in the driveway, because when it came time for the hickory nuts to fall, you know what happened. We would ride bikes under it and bet who was not going to get hit, just take off. Well, today, as I visited the home place, the house is gone. The footprint of the house, the foundation is gone. The tire swing is all gone. The only thing that remains is this huge hickory nut tree that my grandmother planted to feed the squirrels. And not only that, but some of the nuts that fell took root, and the remnants is there. There's small hickory nut trees everywhere. So I said all that to say, I don't never think bad of the good that you do, because that good seed will grow up into a mighty tree. And when you're gone, not even your footprint may remain, except the seed that you plant that grows into a large tree. I just want to throw that in.
Great story. A true one. It's a true parable. So let's see. Moshe Meir ben Sarah and Hadassah Helabat Hamdamish Minsha for healing. I just get that real quick in before we forget. Cole put that in there. Yes, that is when you can give a parable that is true. In other words, one that everybody sees. And I'm not saying that parables are not true, but this is a personal example of what we call a mashal, or a parable that people can learn from, and it's really a good thing. And as you're saying this, I'm thinking about where I grew up as a kid. There used to be an old plantation house there that we lived in, and now that's all gone. All the traces of everything are gone, but the trees my dad planted along the front by the street are all just, I don't even know what kind of trees they are, but they're huge. I mean, and that was like almost 70 years ago when I was growing up there. So when you leave that legacy, when you plant that seed, it's going to grow. You may not see it immediately, but it's going to grow and it's going to flourish, especially with your children, especially with your grandchildren, and with other people around you as they come in contact with you. Because, I always remember the story of Johnny Appleseed. He went up the East Coast, I think it was, planting everywhere he went. He was just planting apple trees. Not for him to profit from them, just so other people will come by and get the apples off of them later on when they grew up, when the trees grew up. And this is a perfect example. And we have to somehow get across to people that doing the commandments of God, those that are commanded for you to do, each individual, we don't have when you do it out of logic and because you think it's a good idea, it's nice. You're living your life like that, but there's nothing, you're not drawing anything down, no power to continue on to the next generation. How many times does the next generation think opposite? This power is what keeps things steady and going forward. And Baruch Hashem, it's going to get stronger and stronger, and more people are coming to understand this. But it starts with the love of God. That's where it starts. Number one, for everybody, all mankind. Okay, if nobody else has anything to say, or if anybody else has anything to say, let's do it, and then we're going to sign off. I think I got the sign up there on the screen now with nobody's faces on there. And don't forget, Wednesday night, 10 o'clock, Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, come join us. I know there's a whole lot of stuff going on the internet now, and everybody says, well, I want to see this tonight and that tonight. It's almost like competition it's turned out to be. That's fine. God put Corona in front of us for a reason, and this might be the reason, one of the reasons. God bless you all. Everybody be well and healthy, and we'll see you on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. Good night, everybody. Let's see.